morning, everyone. In just a second, I'm going to be introducing author Julie Maloney, and we're going to be talking about her debut novel, A Matter of Chance. This book is so good. I cannot believe these debut novels. Seriously, I've interviewed so many people this week on debut novels, and I keep saying this, like, I just can't believe it, and I just can't believe it, okay? This book was amazing. I cannot wait to talk to her about it. It is a thriller. We're not going to be able to talk about a lot of it that I really want to talk about because we don't do spoilers, but I have so many questions. So everyone, here is Julie.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be speaking with author Julie Maloney, and we're going to be talking about her brand new debut novel, A Matter of Chance. Thank you so much, Julie, for talking with me about this book. It's crazy good.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I'm delighted to be here.
I am so happy that I got to read this early and be part of the hype of this because I could not put this book down. I had it on my Kindle and I just walked around. I was walking through the grocery store the other day reading, okay?
I love it. I love it.
This is a book that you cannot put down. I couldn't believe that it's a debut novel for you. I know you have another book out there that's, I think it's a collection of poems, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
yes,
but
this
for
is my debut novel, right?
I have little words. Like I feel like I lived this book so much. I became so attached to Maddie, the main character. And for everyone, this is a book is like a thriller. A suspense. Amazon has it under suspense thriller. But Maddie loses her little girl, Vinny. And at first I was kind of scared. I have 6 children, okay?
Yeah.
Now, they're older now. but I have grandchildren. And I was scared to read it because this is like every mother's nightmare.
Yes, it is. I've had people say that to me, that this was a frightening premise. But what I wanted to do was actually give the story around Maddie, about the woman who was left behind, the mother who was left behind. So the story really revolves around her transformation and her 5-year journey before the end. And I don't want to give the end away.
No. We don't talk about endings at all. So
yes,
don't worry.
Yes, I don't want to do that.
No.
I don't want to do that at all. But I definitely wanted to write about the person who is left behind when a tragedy happens. What happens to her, and how does she change, and what are the challenges that she has to face and the obstacles that she has to overcome, just to really put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, and I loved how you brought out her life in these different, snippets. It's like we don't get her whole backstory right away. As you're reading the book, you're finding out more and more about her childhood and her marriage and, everything that happens to her. And I love that because it was like you were giving us a little morse meal, tidbits of understanding her on a deeper level,
Yes, and people are talking about it as a page turner, as you're saying. And I'm certainly delighted to hear that. But as I was writing it, I wasn't thinking about even writing a page turner. I wasn't thinking about, I think I'll write a thriller, a psychological thriller. And I really just wanted to write her story, and the story became a page turner, and it became a thriller because of the different things that she was seeing and what she was noticing, and her refusal to give up, refusal to just sit back and hope the FBI would find her child for her. And even though there is some discussion about what the FBI does and how the investigation is taking place, really is about her personal journey.
Yeah, I really got that too as a woman, and a woman alone basically alone because she wrapped her world around her daughter. And it's like, how does she go on by herself and with these other people that are trying to help her,
Yes.
but
And
not
she does
wanting
even
to
question that, though. She questions that along the way because she is, as you say, she is a single parent. She's working in New York City in the fashion industry as an editor for a magazine. And she's hidden her passion for painting, which she eventually does reconnect to, and it does actually save her life, painting her way through grief. But she begins to question after her child has been kidnapped from her. Did she do the right thing as a single parent? Was she not paying enough attention? So she begins to feel enormous a sense of guilt. And even though at the time she thoroughly, as you say, felt that she was giving her child enough. And indeed, she did give her child enough. But these are the questions that she had to deal with.
It's just so different. I mean, I've been reading a lot of books lately and a lot of thrillers. And, I mean, you just are an amazing writer, okay, to keep me carrying around my phone like I did. I mean, this is just so, like I said, I was afraid. So everybody out there who are like, oh, missing child, I don't know if I want to go there. I'm telling you, just do it. Like, go on that journey with Maddie because it is a journey. And I was with her and I was rooting for her. And, like when she's not eating and when she's not, like you totally understand, but you're like, please eat. Please eat.
Yes.
Please eat something, know.
She's a completely distraught woman. And it is just certainly by chance that Vinny goes missing. It's by chance that her neighbor who lives downstairs from her in New York City is a renowned painter and sees that Maddie is grieving and takes her under her wing and says, pick up a brush and reconnects her to her passion for painting because Maddie had been someone very much interested in being a painter and ended up being, like I said, an editor in a fashion magazine. But she, reconnecting to her art, she begins to go deeper into who she is as a woman. And the moral choices that she has to make when she has these discoveries along the way. And even though she stumbles upon something that I'm not going to give away, but she stumbles upon something, and she has to ask herself, well, what do I do in this situation? I'm looking at something that could be, very wrong, and do I jeopardize the safety of my own child? The possibility of finding my own child in order to help someone else's child.
Yeah, it's just, and I was reading on your website, and I love your website. I'm going to be posting the link underneath here. You talk about the story about how you came up with this idea, and you can tell everybody, I won't say, you can tell everybody how you came up with this.
Well, it was to write a story about the person left behind. And one day I was actually just strolling through the Morgan Library in New York City, and I had already begun to write the story of Maddie, but I came across this drawing by the phenomenal artist Katja Kollwitz, who is Germany's most revered artist. And it was one image and it was called the Grieving Mother. And I thought, I have got to investigate and learn more about this artist and what she paints, what she draws. And she is someone known for drawing the images of those who are the forlorn and those left behind and those who are suffering great loss, and so much about women and their children. Her drawings are just incredible, and I ended up going to, there are 2 museums in Germany dedicated solely to Kollwitz's work.
Wow.
And so I decided I just got to go. So I went to Cologne, Germany, and I walked in, and honestly, Michelle, it was an emotional experience for me because I had been studying and learning about this artist as I was writing the story of Maddie. So that as Maddie became known as an artist, I was also paralleling my own study of Kovitz's work. So
wow.
I could instill what Maddie was going through by just learning about Kovitz. And so I went to Cologne, Germany, and walked through that museum and looked at her paintings. And she is just, was an amazing woman, and she so much did become the muse for the novel, A Matter of Chance.
Wow. I just thought it was such a beautiful story. And, everybody always has a backstory, but this is just, because of reading the book, I was just like, oh, this got
Yes.
so much,
And again, it was a matter of chance. I felt that I stumbled upon this painting by Cole.
Mm-hmm.
I was just walking through the Morgan Library, and there it was, and I thought, this is the person I need to find out about, because this artist is going to guide me through as I was writing and discovering what was Maddie Stewart's journey through her life as a painter, as her life evolved as a painter. And that's why I also decided to make the story 5 years long.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 5-year journey of Maddie Stewart, because I felt that she really was not going to be able to change in a shorter amount of time. And even though it was agony for her, because her child is missing for those 5 years, it's what happened to Maddie Stewart. What happened to her transformation, and how did she evolve?
Yeah, and I know, as I'm reading it, when it hit 1 year, it's like, it kind of hits you like it's been a year, and then 2 years. But I have to tell you that even as a reader, when you get to year 4 and 5, you do sense that she's changing, and you're almost, it's not as gut-wrenching. You're like, I don't know. It was just a different feeling for me as I was reading it, because I was thinking that it was going to become more because I knew that it was going to take that long, but I was like, I thought it was going to get harder, and actually when it got to year 4, it was like, okay, I don't know. It's
no, you got it. You really got it, and I'm so excited, actually, Michelle, to hear you say this. I'm thrilled, because I want the reader to see that she is changing,
mm-hmm.
that perhaps she's softening. Her edginess, her hardness that comes out in the beginning, she begins to soften. And again, it's because I want the reader to see that she's finding her way through her art. She's painting her way through grief. And she is changing. And I'm so excited to hear you say that as a reader, you see that she is changing. And her heart begins to soften, even though she is, of course, still grieving, because grief, I had to study about grief. What are these stages of grief? And, and how does someone handle something like this and still get up in the morning, which she was doing.
Right. And, since we aren't going to talk about the ending, but I will say that now hearing you say that, it's almost like in the beginning she was so wrapped up in her own grief that as she goes through those stages, and it starts to be not as much about her, and then she starts to realize that it's not a punishment. This isn't just about her, and so then I'm just going to let everybody just read it, okay, and just get through it, because it's it's so tempting to see what happens, but you won't even understand anyway, so just read it, okay? Don't look ahead. Just keep reading through. I know people that are like, I can't do it, and they page through, but you won't understand it anyway. So just do it. Just keep going.
And it is, and actually I also want the reader to see that maybe we shouldn't judge people so quickly.
Right.
That, when she begins to actually have this sense of forgiveness.
Yes.
And towards the end, when she begins to learn the story of why her child was taken, there is that her heart again becomes softer, and she becomes this changed woman, and it all happens because it is a matter of chance. How do we know why things happen?
Right.
So many times I think that it's a matter of chance. We can't look for a reason why something happens, and because why things happen don't make sense to us.
Exactly. And I love a first opening line because I love to hear whether this was the first line that you wrote down, but I want to read it for everybody because it is such a cool line. The day Vinny and I lost each other, we woke early to have breakfast on the beach. And when I read that line, I was like, the day we lost each other, even though you know what it's going to be about, it's like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen quick. Like this is going to be something that, happens like right away, and you just put it out there. Like this is what's going to happen, so be prepared. And was it the first line that you thought of, or did you go back?
The first line, I read about other writers and hear them say they've spent years and years on getting that first line, because that first line is very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that I came to this line fairly quickly because I wanted to bring the reader, just as you say, Michelle, into the story immediately. That let them know immediately that something very sorrowful has happened. A tragedy has happened immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And in chapter 1, you do know that this has happened. And that's why it then becomes the story about Maddie Stewart.
About her. And I love how you put, we lost each other.
Yes.
Because that becomes an important journey for her, too. As you read more, like when I went back and I reread the first line, I was like, that was so perfectly stated, Oh.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Thank you. It is about the way they because they did lose each other. And it rather than someone being taken from someone else, it was really about the loss that each of them experienced. But again, the story revolving around the mother.
Around her. But instead of saying,
her.
like, you could have said the day I lost Vinny, like the day I lost her, but you didn't.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I loved about it. So I always do that. I always go back after I'm done reading the book. I always go back to the first chapter, because you can get so much more out of a book by rereading because you're like, oh, wow, look at it. It was right there. It was so, it was so perfect. So,
setting the reader up. You're exactly right. What is the reader, what reason does the reader have to continue? And I really wanted to make sure that the reader would continue and be interested in Maddie, and that the reader would eventually not judge her, would just see, and maybe not even judge, the other characters, and begin to see, understand that these moral choices that we're all making, and we have difficulty with.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, I have to read books every day because that's what I do. I read books every day. But I really took a break that night. When I finished this, I should have, if I were, if I wanted to save myself less stress, I should have gone right to a next book. But I didn't. I found myself like, no, I just want to sit with this story for a little bit. I don't want to, and that doesn't happen to me very often. It does happen occasionally, but this one, it's almost like I need to sit with it, and I didn't want to move on yet. I was like, nope, tomorrow I'll, tonight I'm just gonna, be with Maddie, and then I'll go to another book tomorrow. And because I think that is, I never understand when it happens. I can't predict that that's going to happen, but when it does, I'm always like, look at that. Like, I don't want to pick up another book. Interesting. I want to just sit with this. I want to be with Maddie a while, and then I'll move on. So, it is, I think it's a compliment for you, and that's why that's why I wanted to tell you, because I really do think, not wanting to just be like, okay, done, on to the next one, it's like, it's not like that with this book, it's like, no, I just want to, savor it just a little bit longer, and not that
I love hearing that. I have to tell you how much I love hearing that, because
good.
In fact, you've just made my day, if not my life, right now. You really have, because maybe I should just run out and play in the snow now after hearing that. But I want the reader to go deeper. I want the reader exactly to experience what you're saying, to close that book and say, aha, so maybe why do things happen, and are they a matter of chance why things happen, and sometimes can what does grief drive us to do? And can we maybe perhaps be, more understanding of someone who is going through a tragedy?
Yeah,
and maybe not be so quick to judge because we don't know the backstories.
Right. And I wanted to ask you about the cover because I love the cover. Did you get to pick it?
Actually, I really have to give the credit to She Writes Press, the publisher, because they have a design team, and they sent me a couple of choices, and I know that they loved this cover, and I trusted them completely, and people have really responded to the cover. They have, and it's very interesting to me because, the cover does make a big difference. Evidently, it does bring people into it. Even the coloring of the cover, it's blue, and there's something, evidently some kind of psychological response to the color blue. And but I wanted the boldness. I love the boldness of the lettering of the title, so that people would remember this, A Matter of Chance, and think about that. But thank you so much. But all of that credit really goes to the publisher and the design team.
Yeah, I'm online just because I know I interviewed Brooke Warner. Yes. Last year I interviewed Brooke Warner.
Yeah, and she is just an indomitable woman.
Oh.
She is a force of nature. She is, I think she is really someone very responsible in part for turning the publishing industry in different directions.
Oh, and her, when I interviewed her, her vision for, as soon as you said She Writes Press, I'm like, oh my gosh, I interviewed that woman. And I looked it up, I'm like, because I couldn't remember her name, but I love her vision for this, for She Writes Press. She had such a vision of, with backing women authors and really, and now look what I can't even believe the website has changed so much, and look what she's done. So, that's awesome. That's
awesome. It fits so perfectly with my own personal vision, because 15 years ago I started an organization called Women Reading Aloud. And I started it with 12 women writers sitting around my dining room table, and now over the past 15 years I've worked with thousands of writers. And I hold retreats in the USA as well as I've held them in Greece and France, and we'll be holding another one in Prague. And this is, now an international organization. So going with a press that is an advocate for women writers, it just completely, was very compatible with my own vision and supporting women writers.
Well, I find, I get a lot of criticism because I do interview way more women than men. But I have to say, it's not on purpose so much, but it just is the community that I've gotten myself into. And women promoting women everywhere. And I have so many book reviewers that I'm friends with, and it's women promoting women. And I don't know. I do. It's not like I don't interview men, because I do. But I found that in the past, 6 months, I just, and I don't know, it's like a very big promotional thing. And I love seeing women and moms, especially these young women who can write novels, and they're stay-at-home moms. And they, it's I love, backing that, because it's I didn't do that when I was raising my kids. And I always want to push that, do that thing, write, have that outlet. And, even while you're raising children.
I agree completely. I think having a creative outlet, when I was a young mother, I was a modern dancer. I was a professional dancer in New York City. And I had my own company, and I was, having babies. And when I look at it now, it was a little bit of insanity. But which again, I think is why I brought Maddie into New York City, the main character into New York City, because I was working in New York City as a dancer and as a choreographer, and my children were very young, and yet I was not willing to give up anything at that point. And until I realized that at a certain point, I could not do everything. And then when I stopped dancing, then I was so fortunate, because I reconnected to my love for writing. And people ask me, well, what was it like, to go from being a dancer to being a writer? And And I wondered how that would be. I wondered if I would find the same incredible feeling of freedom that I did as a dancer as I would as a writer. And I have to tell you, it's much more so. I find a great sense of satisfaction by being a writer. I go deeper as a human being, as a writer, because I can move to the page and go into any subject. And I know that white space, that blank page is waiting for me. And so moving from dance to writing was actually probably as smooth as it could be, even though there was a transitional time where I had to figure out what would be my next step. But I knew that I would have to have continue a creative life. But as a dancer and then as a writer, both of them have given me that. So my whole life has really evolved and revolved as well around creativity.
Yeah, I love that. And like I said, I mean, it's hard to believe this is your debut novel. You've been helping women write for a really long time. So it must have been so awesome to be able to, like, publish your own,
Yes.
and to have your own book out there.
That's a great point, because it's the balancing act. We all do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're involved in. We're all trying to balance. When writers come to my retreats, the Women Reading Aloud retreats, we're always balancing community with solitude. And for me, working with so many writers, which I absolutely adore, I have to tell you, I've had the opportunity to work with the most extraordinary women, to meet the most extraordinary women from different parts of the world, from Australia, Germany, Canada, Greece, London, as well as throughout the USA. And it's extraordinary to me that I'll be returning to Greece in September to lead my 8th international retreat on that island of Alonesis.
Oh,
and it's quite incredible. Oh my God, it is quite exquisite. Yeah, I know you're giggling, and I can understand why, because we write facing the Aegean Sea, and it is exquisite. It is wonderful.
Yeah, and I see here your retreats are sold out at the moment, which, there's a waiting list available, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And you also have, this book is coming out the day that everybody's listening to us, and I want to tell everybody, if you're in the New York, New Jersey area, go on her website. I'm going to have the link listed below. She is everywhere. You are everywhere. Right now. So everybody in this area, if they want to find you, they can find you somewhere. And I'm not that far away myself, so I keep looking at these areas because
Great. Oh, I'd love to meet you. It'd be fabulous.
I know. So, I will, like I said, I'll put the link. Her website is incredible anyway. And I'll also put the Amazon link so that everybody can go right to the link and buy the book. And you can buy it ahead of time, but they won't be able to anyway because they're just hearing it today. So they'll be hearing it on the day of the release. So it was so fun talking to you, Julie. I am so, and I say this to people, but I mean it with the highest compliment, is that I found you. I found your book. I really feel like there was a reason, and I was so blessed by it, and I'm so happy to have met you.
No, thank you so much. Believe me, this has been my pleasure. I love talking about women and women's creative lives, and I love talking about my book, and just speaking with you has been a great pleasure. Thank you so much for your support too, Michelle.
Yeah, and I wish you all the luck with your book signings and with this book, and I will be pushing it as much as I can, telling everybody about it. So best of luck to you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you.
Yep, bye-bye.
If you made it this far, that means you listened to our whole conversation. Wasn't she adorable? Oh, I love talking to her. Oh my goodness. And I am so blessed to have been able to talk to her about this book. I'm telling you guys, go get it. The debut novel coming out today. Underneath here is the link to her website, link to Amazon. But if you are looking for a thriller that you're not going to be able to put down, get this book. So everyone, thank you. If you enjoyed listening to us, please hit like. If you'd like to hear about all my videos, please hit subscribe. Until tomorrow.